little over 5 years ago, I almost did something that would have ruined my business, and that was scale back my company by firing the 2 employees that I had just hired and staying small because I thought it was gonna make me more money. And I wanna share this story with you because at some point in your photo business, as it grows, you are going to experience something like this where you're gonna have a choice between growing your business and pushing into something that you've never done before, or playing it safe, scaling back your business so that you can be more profitable and try to make more money, which doesn't actually happen. But in this video, I'm gonna share this story with you where I almost did this. Here's what happened. My photo business had just done its first $18,000 month. And at that point, it was me shooting as well as my brother, Aaron. And we had done this $18,000 together, up from like $10,000 the month before and up from like $6,000 or $7,000 the month before. So I started having fears that I wasn't gonna be able to do it all myself because I literally wasn't. And so I hired 2 employees to help me grow my business by scaling via hiring more photographers. And the first month that we hired these photographers was October. And in that month, we'd made $18,000, and it was really the end of October when we hired. And going into November, the revenue kind of dipped off because that's when slow season starts for real estate photography. And that's what started me on this bad decision that I almost made. So we made $18,000, me and Aaron. I thought I was rich. Like, that was so much money to me at the time. I was a younger guy. I'd never made anywhere near that type of money, especially in a month. And I was just so excited. And so when I hired these 2 photographers, I went from $18,000 split between me and my brother to $18,000 that first, like $8,000 of it went to salary, and then we split whatever was left after editing and everything like that. And so I basically went from what I thought was a lot of money to basically no money. And on top of that, a couple other things had happened. So because we were going into slow season, the amount of volume that we were doing dropped a little bit, and we had just hired 2 new employees, like I said, and new employees need to be trained. So the first like 3 weeks, maybe a month at that time, because I didn't really know how to train yet, they're very ineffective. So you're like paying for them. You're having to spend more time at each shoot because you have to train them. And on top of that, business had started to slow down. And so I was starting to second guess myself. And I almost made the decision specifically when one thing happened. I had to go out and shoot a video myself because none of my photographers, even Aaron at that time, wasn't trained on how to shoot video. And so I was paying 3 people to sit in our office. On top of that, I just leased an office. Well, I went out and did a shoot. I went out and did the shoot, and I came back. Again, I was the only one working, and I was paying everybody. And they were laughing in the office and kind of goofing off. And when I saw that, I was so mad because I was like, I'm paying you guys. I'm out there shooting. I'm out there doing something that you guys should be doing. And I come back and you're messing around. On top of that, I'm not making any money. And in that moment is when my first real hesitation about whether I made the right decision by trying to grow my team crept in. And so turns out I had to go to another shoot where they also had to sit at the office. And while I was going to that shoot, I called my dad. I think it was actually on the way home. And I was like, here's what I'm thinking. Like, if I get rid of my employees, I could probably save up, after my living expenses, like $3 to $4 grand a month. And, over a period of 3 years, I could maybe save up 150 grand. And then I could start a real business, with that 150 grand that I've saved up. And thankfully, he was wise enough to be like, Eli, that is very stupid. After I'd told him all the facts, like, you just don't know what it means to be a manager. You maybe hired a little too many people. You don't have a plan for how you're going to put them in place. You haven't spent time thinking about how you're going to train them and really how you're going to make these people help you make more money so you can grow a bigger business and not only provide jobs for them, but also grow your business. And so thankfully, I was smart enough at the time. While I was really stupid with other things, I was smart enough to take that piece of advice, and I didn't fire them. And here's what that changed for me. I came back and everything was still broken in my business. I still had to train all these new photographers, and I was still dealing with off season. I was still dealing with the fact that I probably hired too many people too fast. I don't know why I hired 2 people instead of just 1. I don't know why I hired them going into off season, but I did. And I went through the process of undoing all that. And over the period of really the next 5 years that gets us to today, that decision to not fire them has absolutely changed my life. I've been able to build an awesome real estate photo business, way more than those 2 initial people we started with, and a business that currently runs itself today. And because it's able to run itself and because I was able to grow it so significantly, I was able to start another business where I teach photographers how to grow their business. And that's why you're seeing this video. And so many things in my life are a result of me not making the wrong decision in that critical moment to scale back to what I thought was safe so I could save that 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 grand a month so I could start a real business in the future. And if I had made the easier decision to go back and do what was familiar, I wouldn't have had any of that. And so looking back on that decision, here are a couple things that I want to hopefully encourage you with and give you some wisdom that I had to learn almost the hard way from so that you don't make the wrong decision when you see this fork in the road. Number one is the past always seems safer and more familiar because it is more familiar, and it probably is safer because you're familiar with it, right? Like for me at this point, it would have been so easy to go back to being a single photographer and doing this all myself or doing it all with Aaron. Like we could have made a little bit more money. We could have had a much easier day. We could have probably worked less and had less issues because when you bring people into a business, all that stuff comes up. All these issues arise that you didn't know you had. So I could have made the decision to go back to what was safer. But here's the thing, what got you here is not going to get you there. And I always had desire to build a big business. I just had this mistaken desire that I was going to have to make money with this so I could take it out and go build the real business when the real business was right in front of me. I just had to do something that I hadn't learned yet that was unfamiliar, right? And so oftentimes the thing that scares you the most or the thing that you don't want to do in your business is probably what you actually need to do. And so for me, I didn't want to have to learn how to be a manager. I didn't want to learn how to go from a job to a business owner. I didn't want to learn that at that point because it seemed hard, right? But if you think about the two things I just said, those are probably the two most important things I possibly could have learned when it comes to building that real business, right? So if I would have, at that moment, gone back to what was easier and then try to take that money and start a real business, I probably would have just wasted all that money and capped out again in the same place. That's often something that you'll see with business owners. If they jump from industry to industry, they cap at the same point every time because they get up to where they need a certain skill they don't have, and then they jump ship. And so for me at that point, I almost capped myself by not learning how to be a manager and how to build and hire a team. And so I'd encourage you to think about that is every stage in your business you get to, there's gonna be something you're like, I have no idea how to do this. This is unfamiliar. There's a learning curve. And you're gonna be faced with a similar decision, although maybe not as great in magnitude of like, do I go back to what I did or do I lean into this new thing that I need to learn? And here's the thing. When you don't make much money, I'm someone who makes a lot of money every year and I still think that I'm broke compared to so many people. And so I still have this mindset of like, I actually am just in a learning stage. Like I need to learn more because if I learn more, then I can build the real business. So I encourage you to do that, especially if you're just starting your photo business. Even if you make 50, 100, 250 grand a year, that's nothing in the scheme of business. And what's going to get you from that 250 grand a year to $1 million a year or 3 million a year or 5 million a year is what you need to learn, right? Those things you need to learn that will help you get there. And so this video obviously is more for those of you guys that already have a business. You're already more scaled and you're thinking about these harder things, but ultimately it can be applied to any level of business because we all have these places we get to where it's like we can either take a step into something scary or step back into the familiar. And so I'd encourage you to almost every time don't step back into the familiar. There's this decision-making thing you might have heard of called a razor, right? You maybe have heard of Occam's razor. Well, there's this other razor that I think is really interesting where it's basically if you have a decision and the outcome, you can't really weigh it. Like you don't know either way what the outcome is going to be. You should make the decision that causes you the most short-term pain because it's almost always going to cause you the most long-term gain, right? And so I think that's interesting and really could have been something I applied to that decision. Like what causes me more short-term pain? Figuring out how to be a manager, figuring out how to do whatever, or going back to what was easy? Well, obviously the figuring out how to be a manager, right? And obviously that decision had higher, better results because ultimately it was harder. And so I almost steered away from it, right? And so I'd encourage you to use that razor as you're making decisions in your business. Like if you come up against a decision, honestly, whichever one's harder is probably the one you should be doing. So that all being said, here are 3 tactical tips for you that will help you grow your business more successfully and not make the mistakes I almost made. Number 1 is you have to get good at letting go. I thought I was the only one that could do things in the way I did them, and that was true. I'm the only one that could do things in the way I did them, but it didn't need to be my way to help me grow a business. And I think that's one of the biggest things that holds photographers back. You think it has to be a certain way, and it just doesn't. We did a conference last year called Rep 2022, and I had everybody close their eyes, and I said, raise your hand if you've ever felt like you're the only one that could be in your position, that could run your business. And the whole, like literally everybody in there raised their hands. And I said, open your eyes. And as soon as they did, they kind of like pulled their hands down because they were shy. And I was like, no, keep them up. And I was like, look around. Like all these people felt that they were the only one that could run their business, yet here we all are running our businesses. So you have to know that your way is not the only way. And then the other side of that is like you can train people to do it. So you just have to lean into doing that, right? And spend the time to train them. So just be good at letting go. The better you get at letting go and putting the people into a place where they can succeed, then helps you succeed more than you ever could by yourself. You don't want to build a leveraged job, which means that people just help you do it better. You want them to do the job for you, not you. That's how you scale. Number two, and I already kind of touched on this, what got you here will not get you there. You need to learn new skills if you want to progress to the next level in your business and in your life. And number three, going backward always feels like the more satisfying decision almost every single time. You'll start to justify it as like, oh, I know what to do there. Oh, this makes more sense. Oh, I did this. And that will never get you to where you want to go, because where you want to go is ahead and it's somewhere you've never been. So I hope you've learned a lot from this video, and I hope that you don't make the same mistake that I did. But here's the truth. You are going to come to decision points like this over and over and over in your business. And I'm not saying that taking a small step back and reanalyzing what you're doing is a bad decision, but generally it is better to press into the unknown and figure out what you need to know that you don't currently know if you want to continue growing your business. Taking a step back, unless it's a strategic one step back, two step forward kind of thing, is never the right move. And don't let yourself convince you that it is safe. Honestly, we all know this, but our biology is literally just trying to keep us alive. And so I think a lot of the things that cause us to be not successful in business are just built into our DNA as something that helps us not die out there in the world. And we don't have to survive, at least daily, in today's world. And so we have to unlearn some of those things that we've learned over time. That's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.